Welcome back to Scriptures Unlocked. I'm Elias Monroe.
And I'm Rachel Sinclair. Today we're examining one of the most debated phrases in the opening chapter of Genesis. The earth was without form and void. Genesis 1:2. These few words have generated centuries of theological discussion, especially concerning the age of the earth, the structure of creation week, and a view known as the gap theory.
Genesis 1:2 says, "The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep." The Hebrew words here are tohu and bohu. Tohu is commonly translated formless, without form, or desolation. Bohu means empty or void. Together, they describe an unshaped and unfilled world.
The language paints a picture of incompleteness, not evil, not ruined, but unfinished. The earth exists, but it has not yet been ordered and filled by God's creative activity. Throughout the rest of Genesis 1, that is precisely what happens. God forms light and darkness, sky and sea, dry land. Then he fills the heavens with stars, the waters with creatures, the earth with animals and humanity. The chapter itself moves from formlessness to order, and from emptiness to fullness.
Some interpreters, however, have proposed a different understanding of Genesis 1:2. They suggest that Genesis 1:1 describes a fully completed creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Then, according to this interpretation, something catastrophic occurred between verses 1 and 2 that caused the earth to become without form and void. This became known as the gap theory.
The gap theory proposes there was a long, undefined span of time, a gap between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. One of the most influential advocates of this idea was Thomas Chalmers, a Scottish theologian writing in the early 1800s. Chalmers argued that Genesis 1:1 referred to an ancient, original creation, while the 6 days beginning in verse 2 described a later reordering or restoration of the earth. He wrote in 1814, "It forms no part of the first day, but refers to a period of indefinite antiquity, when God created the worlds out of nothing." His approach attempted to allow vast geological ages without abandoning a literal reading of the creation days themselves.
The gap theory gained enormous popularity in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, especially through the influence of the Scofield Reference Bible, edited by C.I. Scofield. For many Christians, the theory seemed to offer a way to reconcile geological evidence suggesting an old earth, fossil records, and a literal 6-day creation account.
The theory also appealed to readers trying to explain why Genesis 1:2 appears so stark and chaotic after the majestic declaration of Genesis 1:1. Some gap theorists even connected the supposed catastrophe to the fall of Satan, though that idea is not explicitly stated in the biblical text.
Historically, though, the dominant interpretation before Thomas Chalmers was much simpler. Most Jewish and Christian interpreters understood Genesis 1:2 as describing the earth during the early stage of creation week itself, not after a catastrophic judgment. In this view, without form and void simply describes the earth before God shaped and filled it.
Under the non-gap understanding, Genesis 1 presents a process of divine ordering. The earth begins unformed and unfilled, and over the 6 days God progressively transforms it into a habitable world. This interpretation sees no need to insert a massive span of time between the two verses. Advocates often argue that introducing a gap relies heavily on speculation and silence, rather than direct statements from the text.
Another important point in this discussion involves the idea of appearance of age. Some non-gap interpreters suggest that creation was brought into existence mature and functional from the start. Adam, for example, was created as an adult capable of speech, reasoning, and work. He was not created as an infant.
The same logic could apply to trees bearing fruit, mountains already formed, or stars already shining. In that framework, the universe could appear mature immediately upon creation without requiring vast ages prior to humanity. This perspective generally does not see a theological necessity to insert a gap into Genesis.
What's important to recognize is that faithful Christians have held different views on these questions, while still affirming the core truths of Genesis. God is creator. Creation is intentional. Humanity bears God's image. The universe is dependent upon God.
Genesis was not written primarily as a modern scientific document. It was written to reveal theological truth about God, humanity, and creation. The opening chapter of Scripture establishes God's sovereignty, the goodness of creation, and God's authority over all existence. Those truths remain central regardless of where someone lands on the gap theory debate.
The phrase, without form and void, has sparked centuries of reflection because it sits at the intersection of theology, interpretation, science, and philosophy.
Whether one accepts the gap theory or the traditional non-gap reading, Genesis continues to point readers toward the same foundational reality. The universe is not accidental. Creation exists because God willed it into being.
And the God who brought order out of formlessness continues to bring meaning, beauty, and purpose into human lives today.
Thanks for listening to Scriptures Unlocked.